There is something I have kept back from you until you were standing exactly here, at the fork in the road where every direction looks like a guess, and not one of them looks like me. Not the wide road you were taught to want. Not the safe one the people around you already chose. Not the straight lit road you keep asking me to roll out in front of your feet before you will agree to move them. Stay at the crossing a moment longer. Do not choose yet, because before these words are finished, I'm going to hand back to you the one thing you asked me for and quietly stopped believing I ever sent. You asked me for a sign. I heard it. Not the careful version you prayed where someone might overhear you. The other one. The one you breathed out alone on the dark road when you were too tired to keep pretending you knew where you were going. You said, "Just show me. Show me which way. Give me something I cannot miss. Something in the sky. Something with my name on it. And I promise I will follow." Then you stood at the edge of the road, watching the far end of it for a light that would settle everything at once. And when the distance stayed dim, you decided the silence was your answer. The answer was no. It was never no. I have been answering you the whole time you stood there, only not from the direction your eyes were fixed on. You have been searching the road ahead for a sign. The word I sent has been coming to you from behind. Before we walk any further, rest 2 fingers lightly at the base of your throat, in the small hollow where a word begins to take shape before you have decided to speak it. Feel how still it is there right now. That is the place I speak into. Not over your head, not shouted across the valley, but low and close from just past your shoulder. In the quiet register you save for the things you only half dare to hope. Leave your fingers there, a breath longer. Let the road go quiet under us. Hold on to this line while we go. You will reach for it again before the end. The sign you kept begging me to set out ahead of you was always meant to arrive as a voice at your back. I have watched you stand at this crossing far longer than you would admit to anyone. The one holding 2 futures in the same tired hand, turning them over in the dark, unable to set either one down. There is a person who has read the same decision 40 times, who still cannot feel which way is me, and which way is only fear wearing my voice. A woman sits in a parked car at the end of a driveway, the engine running. Both roads equally open in front of her, waiting for something outside herself to tip the wheel. A man keeps one door propped open in his mind, his whole ordinary life behind the other. He refuses to step through either, in case he steps wrong. None of this looks like faith to you anymore. To me, it has always looked like someone who wants to follow, someone simply terrified of following in the wrong direction. I have seen the smaller crossings too, the ones no map would ever mark, the message you have started and deleted 4 times, because you cannot tell whether reaching out is courage or foolishness. The word you almost said at the dinner table and swallowed instead. The road you took years ago. The one you keep glancing back down, wondering whether the turn was me or only your own wanting dressed up in borrowed certainty. You have carried the weight of every one of those choices, as though the whole burden of getting it right rested on a person standing at a fork, with no one beside them. You were never standing there alone. I have never once let you reach a crossing I did not reach first. There is a particular kind of tiredness that settles into a person who has been waiting a long time for direction. It is not the tiredness of a hard day's walking. It is the ache of standing still, of a body that wants to move, and a heart that will not let it, of asking the same question so many times the asking itself begins to feel like failing. You have watched other people seem to stride down their roads, with an ease you cannot understand. And you have quietly concluded that they must have received something you were passed over for, some clarity handed to them that never came to your address. I have not passed you over. I have not shown someone else the road and hidden it from you as a punishment. You have simply been listening in the one direction where my voice was never going to be. Notice how still the crossing is around you as you read this. That stillness has frightened you for a long time. You have read it as absence, as the sound of a house with no one home in it. I want to teach you to read it differently before we are done, because that same stillness is the exact condition in which a low voice at your shoulder can finally be heard. You could never have heard a whisper behind you, not over the noise of the spectacle you kept demanding out ahead. The quiet you have been calling abandonment is the room I have been waiting to speak into. And I have noticed how the asking wore thin. In the beginning, you prayed about the road with your whole chest, certain that if you only asked clearly enough, I would draw the way in the dust at your feet. Later it shrank to a sentence, then to a few words pushed up toward the ceiling at the end of a long day. Then, some nights, to nothing but a held breath, and a hope you were too weary to shape into language. I caught every one of those, including the ones that never became words. The half-formed ache you assumed was too faint to count as prayer is the exact sound I leaned down closest to hear. So let me tell you plainly, what the God you have been waiting for is not, because the picture in your head has been costing you your feet. The God you were handed somewhere along the years hides the road on purpose. He waits to see whether you can guess it. That God keeps the directions locked in a drawer, and it calls your confusion a test of how badly you want them. That God stands at the far end of the path with his arms folded, watching you squint into the distance, withholding the one word that would let you move, until you have proven yourself worthy of being told. I want you to hear this slowly, that God is not me. I have never once enjoyed watching you lost. Where did that folded arm God come from, if not from me? He was built out of the human beings who made you earn everything else. Somewhere on the road behind you, there were people who let you feel their approval only when you guessed their wishes correctly. People who went quiet and made you find your own way back into their good graces, who treated love as a reward for reading them right. You learned the shape of them so young that you never questioned it. And later, when you turned to look for me, you found their outline standing where I should have been. You called it God, and you have been trying to satisfy it ever since. That silhouette was never mine. I let you draw it over my face by mistake, and I have been waiting a long time for a chance to step out from behind it. The one actually walking this road with you does not hide the way to see if you deserve it. I am not a riddle you have to solve before I will love you enough to point. I am not standing far off with the map behind my back. Look again at where my voice has been coming from. Not from the unreachable horizon you keep straining toward, from just behind you, near enough to touch your shoulder, close enough that you could have heard it, anytime you stopped watching the distance long enough to listen at your back. There is an older wisdom about this than you have let yourself trust. It says the person who leans on the whole weight of their own understanding will exhaust it at the first real fork. But the one who leans instead on me, who lets me have the parts of the road they cannot see, will find the path made straight beneath them as they walk it. Read the order of that carefully. It is the opposite of how you have been living. It does not say you will see the straight road first and then step. It says you step in trust, and the straightening happens under your feet as you go. You have been standing still, refusing to move until the whole way was made clear. I have been telling you the way clears in the walking, not before it. This is the thing fear got exactly backward in you. Fear taught you that guidance is a spectacle out ahead, a burning light in the sky, a coincidence so loud it removes all risk, and that until you receive the spectacle, you are right to stand still. But a sign out ahead would only tell you the road exists. A voice behind you tells you someone is already on it with you, walking one step back, watching the very turn you are about to make. The first would end your uncertainty for a single moment. The second stays with you around every bend for the rest of the journey. Think about why guidance had to come this way and not the other. If I had given you the whole map, printed and finished, you would have folded it into your pocket and walked off without me, checking it at each fork, the way you check a stranger's directions, never again needing to hear my voice. You would have been guided and alone at the very same time. That is exactly what the folded-arm God would have wanted for you. A life of correct turns and no companion. But I did not go looking for you on this road in order to make myself unnecessary to you 2 miles down it. I came to walk with you all the way. And a voice for the next step is the only kind of guidance that keeps a walker turning to listen. The map ends the conversation. The voice keeps it going for the length of the whole journey home. And I know what you have done with the wrong turns you have already taken. You have used them as evidence against your own ability to hear me. You told yourself that if you had truly been listening, you would never have chosen that road. And since you did choose it, you must not be someone I speak to. So you stopped trusting your own feet entirely. And now you cannot move at all. Hear me carefully. A wrong turn is not proof that I stopped speaking. It is proof only that you are a person walking a real road with real bends in it. The same as every son and daughter I have ever led. The voice does not go silent when you drift. It follows you into the drift and turns you around. There is an old promise I set down long ago for a whole people who had run clean out of their own directions. They had guessed wrong so many times they no longer trusted their own feet. They had gone looking for signs in every place, except the one where I was actually speaking. And into that exhaustion, I made them a promise about how my guidance would actually come. And I want to read it to you the way I first gave it, before anyone smoothed it into a saying on a wall. Picture them for a moment. They were not so different from you. They were a people who had spent years trying to secure their own future by their own cleverness, forming alliances, hedging every bet, looking to every power on the horizon that might save them, running down road after road that promised safety and delivered none. They were worn out from steering by their own understanding, and they had the wreckage of a dozen wrong turns behind them to show for it. They were exactly the kind of people the folded-arm God would have left standing in the road as a lesson. Instead, into that failure, I made them a promise. Not of a map, not of a spectacle, but of a teacher who would no longer hide, and of a voice they would hear coming from behind them as they walked. I did not write it for scholars to weigh in a quiet room. I wrote it for the ones standing where you are standing now, at the end of their own certainty, half convinced they had missed their turn years back, and I had stopped bothering to lead them. I wrote it for the woman in the parked car. I wrote it for the man who will not step through either door. I wrote it for you, watching the wrong end of the road for a light that was never going to come from there. I gave that same people another word around the same stretch of their history, that the plans I held for them were plans for their welfare and not for their harm, to give them a future and a hope. I did not say that so they could stop moving and wait for the future to arrive on its own. I said it so they could take the next step, trusting the one who already knew where the road led. If that sentence just found the exact place in you that has been frozen at a fork, tired of guessing and afraid to move, name it. One word, wherever you are sitting. Not for anyone else to see. Only as a small honesty told out loud to the one already standing on the road at your back. Here is what I said. Isaiah chapter 30, verse 21. And your ears shall hear a word behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it, when you turn to the right or when you turn to the left. Say it again to yourself, slower. Let each piece of it land. Your ears shall hear a word behind you. Behind you. Not ahead, where you have been staring yourself blind. Behind, where a guide walks when the one being guided still has to be the one to take the step. I do not lead you the way a spectacle leads, flashing at the far horizon, leaving you to sprint toward it alone. I lead you the way a voice leads a traveler on a dim path, walking close at your shoulder, speaking only as much as the next step requires. Walk in it. Notice that the word only comes as you move. The promise is not that you will be shown the whole road laid out from here to the end, not before your foot lifts. The promise is a word for the step. And then, when you have taken it, a word for the one after. You have been standing at this crossing demanding the entire map before you would trust the first stride. I have been offering you a voice for the next stride, and the next, all the way home. That is not a smaller gift than the map. It is a far greater one. Because a map would make you independent of me by the second mile. And I did not come this far to walk you toward a place where you no longer need to hear my voice. And hear the last piece, the tender one. When you turn to the right or when you turn to the left. I did not say the word comes only if you get it perfect. I said it comes at the turns, on either side, including the wrong ones. This is the part the hiding God could never have told you. It does not fit his folded arms. Even when you drift, even when you take the turn out of fear instead of faith, the voice does not fall silent and abandon you to the ditch. It keeps speaking, gently from behind, steering you back. You cannot wander so far to the right or the left that you walk out from under the range of my voice. Sit with how much freedom that one line hands back to you. You have been paralyzed at the crossing because you believed a single wrong step would carry you somewhere I could not reach, off the edge of the map, into a place with no more directions. But the promise is built for a walker who moves and sometimes strays, not for a statue too afraid to lift a foot. The correction is written into the guidance. That means you are allowed to move before you are certain. The certainty was never the condition of being led. The listening was. A traveler who takes the next honest step and keeps his ears open at his back is far safer. Safer than one who stands frozen at the fork, insisting on a guarantee I never promised to give in advance. And notice what kind of nearness this is. A signpost does not know your name. A map does not care whether you are afraid. But a voice speaking your next step from just behind your shoulder is a person. Present, attentive, close enough to have seen the tremor in your hand before you took the turn. This was never only about information. It was about company. The deepest thing I am promising you at this fork is not merely that you will know the way. It is that you will not walk it by yourself. Return with me now to the fork where this whole message began. You were standing there certain that my silence up ahead meant one thing, that I had left you to choose alone in the dark. But I was never up ahead. I have been the word at your back the entire time, close enough to steer you, patient enough to wait for your foot to lift. The sign you asked me for was not withheld. It simply came from a direction you had trained yourself never to check. One more thing is folded into the shape of that verse, and it is the reason the whole picture finally holds together. A voice behind a traveler is the voice of one who has already been where the traveler is going. You do not stand behind someone on a road you have never walked. You stand behind them because you have seen the bend ahead, because you know which fork drops off and which one leads home, because you have covered this ground already and now walk it a second time for their sake. That is where my voice speaks from, not from ignorance guessing alongside you, from the far side of the very road you are afraid of, doubled back to walk it again at your shoulder. And this is why the promise holds, why it is more than a comforting saying for a hard season. The one speaking from behind you once walked the whole road himself. My son called himself the way, not a signpost pointing at the way from a safe distance, but the road itself, laid down under your feet. He walked it all the way into the dark place where every road seems to end, into the silence you fear most, and he came up out of it on the far side into morning. So when I tell you there is a way through the fork you cannot read, I'm not pointing at a path I have never traveled. I am telling you about ground I have already broken with my own steps, ahead of you and beneath you, so that no turn you take can lead somewhere I have not already been. So here is something small you can carry onto the road this week, if you want it. The next time you reach a crossing, however small, do not stand there waiting for the sky to open. Take one honest step in the direction that looks most like love, most like me, and then listen. Not out ahead, but low and close. For the correction or the confirmation that comes from behind, you may hear nothing clear the first time, or the 10th. But somewhere down the road you will notice something. You have been steered 100 small times by a voice you had stopped straining to hear, only because it was never where you were looking. Let one slow breath go all the way out now, longer and emptier than the breath you drew in. The way you would set down a heavy bag at the end of a long walk rather than keep gripping it. You do not have to hold the whole map to take the next step. You were never asked to. You were only ever asked to move and to listen behind you as you move. There is a smaller practice inside that one, if you want it. When the fear at the crossing rises and tells you that you must have certainty before you are allowed to move, try answering it out loud. Low, in that hollow at your throat, where a word begins. Tell it the truth you keep forgetting. The way clears in the walking. You do not have to say it with any feeling behind it. Say it the way you would read a direction back to someone to make sure you heard it right. You may not believe your own voice the first several times, but a thing said honestly enough times begins to reshape the ear that keeps hearing it. And slowly you will find yourself less afraid of the fork and more attentive to the voice. And be gentle with how long this takes to feel true. You have spent years training yourself to watch the wrong end of the road. And an old habit of looking does not turn around in an afternoon. There will be crossings this week where you forget everything I have told you, where you stand frozen out of sheer reflex, staring at the horizon again. When you catch yourself doing it, do not treat it as proof that nothing has changed. Treat it as the exact moment to turn your listening around. One more time, toward the voice at your back. The turning of your attention is the whole of the work. You will do it clumsily, over and over, and each time you do it, you will be learning the sound of me a little better. I am not asking you to feel brave at the fork. Bravery was never the requirement. The requirement was only ever a willingness to take one small, honest step while keeping your ears open behind you. A single step in the direction that most resembles love is enough for me to work with. I would rather have you moving imperfectly and listening than standing perfectly still and certain, because the one who moves and listens is on the road with me, and the one who stands still and waits for a spectacle is still trying to be led by a God who does not exist. And do not measure my nearness by how clear the road looks from where you stand. A confusing stretch of path is not evidence that I have gone silent. A season where you cannot see 3 steps ahead is not proof you took a wrong turn and forfeited my voice. The fog is only fog, here for a stretch and gone again. The voice behind you is not the fog. It does not depend on visibility, and it has not stopped speaking just because you cannot yet see where the road bends. I am not going to hand you a sign in the sky with a date written on it, and I need you to know that is not me being withholding. It is me refusing to give you a counterfeit and call it guidance. Anyone promising you a lightning bolt of certainty that removes all risk and all trust is not describing the way I have ever led anyone I love. I lead the way a shepherd leads through country the sheep cannot see across. One word at a time, close at the shoulder. That is not the poorer version of being led. It is the whole of it. Think of how a traveler learns a road at dusk with someone who knows it walking just behind. He does not see far. He sees only the ground his own steps are about to touch, and he trusts the voice at his shoulder for the rest. He steps, and the next stretch appears. He steps again, and a little more of the way comes clear. He never once holds the whole road in his mind at a single time, and he arrives anyway, because the arriving was never his job to engineer. It was only his job to keep walking and keep listening. That is the entire craft of being led by me. Not certainty, not a spectacle that ends all risk. Just the next honest step. An ear kept open behind him, and a companion who has walked this exact ground before and doubled back to walk it with him now. The sign was never a spectacle ahead of you. It was a word behind you. You have not missed your turn. You have not walked past the last exit of my patience. The voice that named the way is still speaking, still close, still steady, at your back where it has always been, waiting only for your foot to lift so it can tell you the next thing. Amen. Before you go, let me ask you one thing, and answer it if you can. Which road did you stop walking because you were waiting for a sign that never came the way you expected it? Name it in the comments. I read them, everyone. And if someone came to mind while you listened, someone standing frozen at a fork of their own, tired of guessing in the dark, pass this along so the voice can reach them from behind too.